Because then when you're an independent now.
Yeah.
So what does that say? That to me, it says that you think the Republican Party is unsavable.
Unsavable. Oh, no doubt about it.
Because otherwise you would want to stay on, right, and reform it, but you think
it can't be saved.
It cannot be saved. I've never argued with that. I've never argued that of a false equivalency. I just said there is misinformation from both sides.
Well, sorry.
So I lived through COVID. Don't tell me there wasn't misinformation.
But there's a difference between...
I lived through stupid policies based on bad information and stifled information.
Things just got spicy between Bill Maher and MSNBC's Joe Scarborough, and let's just say, Scarborough might need some aloe for that burn. During a tense late-night exchange, Maher didn't just disagree with Scarborough's take on Trump. He absolutely torched it. Scarborough, clearly caught off guard, started backpedaling so fast he nearly moonwalked off set. Maher, always sharp and unfiltered, called out the absurdity in Scarborough's comments with brutal precision, leaving Joe looking like he'd just remembered he left the stove on. So what did Scarborough say that set Maher, and how exactly? Did Maher clap back? Stay tuned. We're about to serve this tea extra hot.
Said that he was going to use the military and the National Guard to arrest his political opponents. He was asked if he would back off of that.
He said no.
And he said no. Yep. In fact, he doubled down. He talked about Nancy Pelosi being evil, her husband being evil, Schiff being evil, talking about arresting them. He said he was going to execute the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff because he was disloyal to him. He told another chief of staff who was a general, I wish my generals were like Hitler's general.
It's another day, and the outrage machine is running full throttle. Trump derangement syndrome in peak form. For some, any mention of Trump triggers a scramble to twist his words, stir up fear, or even fabricate controversy just to keep him in the villain role. Enter Joe Scarborough, whose recent commentary is a textbook case of that exact playbook. Before Bill Maher even had a chance to jump in, Scarborough's take already reeked of heavy bias. He zeroed in on a Trump statement, stripped it of context, and presented it as something far more sinister than it likely was. It wasn't just misleading. It felt like a deliberate spin, crafted to provoke outrage and keep the anti-Trump narrative front and center. And sure enough, Maher responded in classic fashion, cutting through the spin with his trademark sarcasm and sharp critique. But the bigger issue here isn't just Maher versus Scarborough. It's how selectively framing quotes and ignoring key context fuels division. When the goal is outrage over accuracy, truth becomes collateral damage.
There's no doubt.
There's no misinformation.
There's some disinformation from the left, but comparing it to what Donald Trump spews out every day, every week, comparing it to what Elon Musk is spewing out, unfortunately, on X, you sound like Brett Stevens now, with all due respect. It's a joke. That's a real time.
And you sound like him, who looks like Rachel Maddow.
You understand what I'm saying?
I've never argued with that. I've never argued that of a false equivalency. I just said there is misinformation from both sides. So I lived through COVID. Don't tell me there wasn't misinformation.
But there's a difference between...
I lived through stupid policies based on bad information and stifled information. That's what Zuckerberg said. He said they were forcing us not to put out...
Irony is almost too rich to ignore. Many of the accusations hurled at Trump by the left are the very things they themselves are guilty. As Bill Maher didn't hesitate to highlight, it's a masterclass in projection. From peddling misinformation to cherry-picking facts, networks like MSNBC have played a central role in shaping one-sided narratives while conveniently glossing over their own blunders. Want example? They're not hard to find. The Russian collusion narrative, amplified endlessly by Rachel Maddow, the dismissive framing of the Hunter Biden laptop story as disinformation, or the widely fine people hoax still circulated as These weren't just mistakes. They were stories pushed with conviction and treated as gospel by those eager to take down. What's most concerning, though, isn't the mistakes themselves. It's the blatant double standard when every syllable is scrutinized, often twisted, but when left-wing politicians or media personalities make false claims. Crickets, or at best, a quick walkback buried under newer heads. This isn't just hypocrisy. It's a calculated effort to control the narrative, keep audiences emotionally charged, and ensure Trump remains the go-to, because it, to their own misinformation, would mean acknowledging they're not so different from the man they've built their brand around. and that's a truth they're not ready.
You haven't changed. So you consider yourself a liberal, right?
I consider myself an old school liberal. You have to make that distinction now because, you know, the word woke, which started out as a good thing, being alert to injustice, and a lot of people get triggered by the word because when they hear it, they think of the old meaning, which was good.
Right.
You know, stay woke. But I'm sorry, language is a living, breathing entity. Words change and they migrate and they take on a different meaning. And woke now has to answer for, or for people have just used the word to ascribe a number of extreme things on the left.
Here's where I've got to challenge Bill Maher a bit. He tends to downplay just how widespread the woke ideology has become. He frames it as a fringe issue, something only a small slice of the left has embraced. But let's be real, it's not just a fringe anymore. It's the mainstream mindset in many liberal spaces, from politicians pushing radical policies, to media figures towing the ideological line, to Hollywood injecting activism into everything from scripts to acceptance speeches. Wokeness isn't a blip, it's the blueprint. It's not some underground trend. It's the dominant culture in left-leaning institutions. As for Joe Scarborough, he didn't have much to offer in response, probably because deep down, he knows Maher struck a nerve. The real question is, how long can Scarborough and others like him keep pretending this isn't the reality?
It was a big, I think, challenge here to win over the undecided voters is to convince them that she's not part of what they suspect she might be, sort of a stealth version of the worst excesses of the left. I said there's a coalition of Trump voters, people who really like him, they certainly are those, and then there's people who don't necessarily like him that much, but they still think he's less crazy than stuff that strikes them as aggressively anti-common sense.
Right.
That takes place on the left.
Right. So
that's why they keep running that ad about sex changes in prison. You know, like could you...
And every football game.
Could you get... Every football game. Could you get more third-rail words into one sentence?
Kamala Harris wouldn't just struggle to step away from the progressive left. She might not even want to, because she's not merely aligned with the movement. Let's not kid ourselves. What's often labeled as the woke left isn't some fringe group operating on the outskirts. It's the mainstream, the establishment, and the most amplified voice in Democratic politics today. Just take a look at the kind of support Harris has drawn. Her campaign events weren't packed with moderate Democrats looking to challenge the movement. They were filled with passionate supporters who fully embraced. Hollywood stars rallied around. Reporters offered friendly coverage. Media outlets often avoided stories that might cast her in a tough light. This isn't the work of a small, rebellious corner of the party. It's the party machine in motion. So let's drop the idea that this brand of politics is some isolated. It's not the outlier anymore. It's the...
On the one hand, understand you benefited from racism if you're white. There's no doubt about it. And that has to be addressed. It can't be ignored.
Right.
But also, I didn't personally do it. There's a middle ground there. It's very difficult.
Two things can be true at one time.
And they are both true at one time.
Right.
I'm not personally responsible, but did I benefit? Yes, I'm sure I did. People our age definitely did.
Right.
And so, if we can all agree on things like that, we could then come up with sensible policy.
The only real path forward in a deeply divided America is a return to common sense and balance. Our government needs to focus on real-world solutions, policies that actually tackle the country's toughest challenge without catering to one side or shutting out the other. That means leaving behind performative politics and moving toward action that benefits everyone, not just the loudest group in the room. Take racism, for instance. It's a complex, deeply rooted issue that demands thoughtful, strategic responses. Not flashy, one-size-fits-all policies designed more for headlines than for impact. Real progress